Hi, I'm Kristina Frost, First General Motors. I've been writing a book for the last 4 years describing my story, losing to state and federal court after my Buick exploded, losing the wrongful death of my children in court, and running off to Detroit from North Carolina in Asheville where it happened, where I went to college at Western Carolina University. And coming here to Detroit and telling my story and having to be the hero of your own story, especially when the justice system fails. And I had documented all my progress to get to this point, following the signs, what I call my book, Looking for Signs, the application of integrity. To be integral, to be fulfilled, to be one, the subjective, intangible spirit in your physical body and the physical world. Whatever you come into mind, making it manifest before you. And I can say I've done it. And I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't feel like I've checked everything off that I could possibly do. It was one of the best summers of my life, other than raising my children in the mountains when I was young and being on the water, living this lake life. I first started in Detroit, and this book explains all the turmoil and protesting in Detroit, being a mad woman, and taking on a young roommate and saving that kid's life. It's all in the book here. We've made it to chapter 23. I've been going back through to edit, and I've added things and have kept up with it. So it's something that I owe to myself to finish, because it is something that has kept me going for so long. And it gave me such purpose to tell my story. And I felt dancing was a way to do that. I have a passion for dancing and joined a team, which wasn't easy for me, and being triggered in a lot of different ways. There's lots of moms on the team. One doing my hair, I'm a mom, that's what I do. Or the girls talking about their kids going to school. I had to excuse myself. I might have mentioned before, but so it wasn't easy. But I stuck it out as long as I could. I'd like to do private lessons now. They're going to New Jersey, and I watched them last year. I performed in Detroit and Denver, and my mind needs so much stimuli that practicing 6 hours a week on the same routines and things, I think just, and in group settings, I think I learn at a slower pace than one-on-one. But anyway, so I'm proud of myself. I have my legs, and I've danced and taught dance at Arthur Murray, and so it took going to Detroit and living this crazy life, taking dance lessons at Detroit Dance Loft and everything you'll find in this book, to change my life and follow your intuition and go for it, and betting on yourself. So chapter 23, going back through and editing, I know if you build it, they will come, right? And I'm proof of that. So if I make it presentable, there'll be an editor ready for me to get to the next step. And people have offered different editors and stuff. So this is quite a long book. We're on chapter 23, Beyond Order. And in Detroit, I had bought tickets back when I was working at the brewery, or as before the brewery. I worked at a couple different places down there serving and stuff. And I bought these tickets to see Jordan Peterson. At that time, Jordan Peterson was such inspiration around integrity and responsibility for your life. So here we go, going back through me 4 years ago, navigating integrity and what to do with chaos beyond order, and how do you navigate life with PTSD, etc. So beyond order, here we go. It just amazes me that people with real jobs and income don't take advantage of this opportunity. It really amazes me that those men think they could ever have a chance with me. Cute, Kristina. So cool. I tell everyone I am focused on myself right now, that I'm seriously bored with everyone I meet. If you are a professor at Wayne State and you say, wow, $100 ticket, that's a lot, you've completely missed the point of studying life at all. I risk everything I have for my future and the future of those around me. I have no income, living off $800 a month now from disability that it took 3 years to be approved of. And I lost my disability going back to work full time after taking dance lessons and becoming an instructor. Jordan Peterson is coming to Detroit, only $102 a ticket. Yes? How much is it worth? To get a chance to hear Jordan Peterson's thoughts on his latest book and current world events, and a chance at a Q&A, of course, it's worth $100 to potentially get a microphone in my hand, tell my story, or get a picture, or hand Jordan Peterson a letter. Of course, it's worth $100, which I did make up Jordan Peterson's birth chart and wrote all kinds of notes on it and left it there at the signing table when I got his autograph. My goodness, and these boys wonder why they bore me. I wonder why I'm not interested. Jordan Peterson's first stop on his tour after I moved to Detroit is the Fillmore in Detroit. I'd say that's a good sign. Next chapter. If it isn't broke, don't fix it, but improve it, right? Mad Medicine Woman of Detroit. The Mad Woman of Detroit says. So I was the Mad Medicine of Detroit for a while. So I must be a mad woman to critique a Jordan Peterson Beyond Order tour at the Fillmore of Detroit. Man, was I disappointed. Not in the venue, not in the speaker, but in the message. I understand it's a system that works. Jordan Peterson can speak on a chapter to so many in all of his books and messages on YouTube, absolutely inspiring, etc. But not only did the audience comment prior, it's not like Jordan Peterson to be late. His wife came out first to introduce him with a story first, not a problem. Touching story with those who resonate, ending with, so yeah, believe in God. That's what I'm saying. Fair enough. She did. She came out and she told this personal story and why it was important to believe in God. But Jordan Peterson touches on not just the traditional interpretations of the Bible, but also the astrological interpretation. And in my book, Looking for Signs, I follow these astrological interpretations, whether it was eclipses or what have you, that significant things would happen. But if we have responsibility, and Jordan Peterson has read so much, why hasn't he revealed books such as The Astrological Foundation of the Christ Myth, or The Gospel in the Stars, or The Light of Egypt, or any of the many books in my library? He has even mentioned before that I have in my documentary that there's a whole astrology of Christianity. I understand he can't drive that point home, for he would create many enemies. I even had the privilege of sitting next to a young practicing priest in the making. What a bummer. That's hilarious. They are so blind that they cannot see how existential and materialistic their literalism is. Luckily, him and his friends were having some beers and a good time. The guy next to me, a total tool, the first thing he says, how am I going to get through this not drunk? So Christ in Greek is chrism, and it's an oil that's secreted from the pituitary and pineal gland and runs down the spinal cord and can be risen back up and cross to the cerebrum. And so the Bible has biological significance and symbolism in it. And to drink and get drunk is to poison this Christ with other spirits, right? So not very Christian-like to me to want to get drunk as a priest and his friend and everything. And at this time, I was not drinking. I did not drink until I bought my house for 4 years. I was strictly, I did not spend money on alcohol. Couldn't afford it, really. What a good practicing priest with such good friends and influences. My teachings in astrology teach not to drink alcohol or eat meat because it spoils the Christ, Greek for chrism, that is seated in the solar plexus, ruled by Virgo, the digestive system, the house of Bethlehem, or the house of bread in translation. And this seed, Christ Jesus, is raised back up to the cerebrum, where he is crucified to the right side of the brain. Now, there are plenty of books that back this up. I'm not making this up. When I practice, my body filled with light hit the lightning and received the photon, as Bill Donahue, biblical teacher of astrotheology, explained in my research. And so it happened one time. It's on my Instagram, and my body filled with light, and I started laughing. This was 4 or 5 years ago, before I took off to Detroit, and that to me told me everything was real. That I sat in meditation for just a couple minutes on my bed, and this shock of light went through my body like a lightning bolt, and everything filled with light. The outside, the inside, it was all one big light for a split second, and I started laughing. So, and laughing itself, I think, is such a transcendental emotion to experience. When I practiced, yes, this is what we got. Proof in the pudding, pagan Christians, outer temple, exoteric materialists, literalists, looking in the clouds for Jesus to come back. He is there, they still can't see him. Jesus, Jupiter, Zeus, Jesus, and actually the Latin equivalent to yes, Krishna, yes, we raise our head, yes, the rising and setting of the sun. Yes is the sun, Jesus. And on the tallest church in Detroit, it says IHS. As I repeat a lot of times, you'll see the tallest church says IHS on the side of it. It's Greek for yes. Yes, Krishna, the sun. I think I'm going to start studying with my nurse. He is part of the intake team when I came to the hospital that night after the explosion. I think he's on to something. Let's see. Should I be more specific? The explosion... night at the hospital, let's see, night at the hospital at Wake Forest Baptist. Just to give a little context of where that is. And then I list a bunch of references here. He is ridiculed as a man in the nursing field. He really looked up to Jordan Peterson, but he admired me for my reaction to Jordan Peterson's tour show in Detroit. He asked, "What did you learn last night?" This is lean, typo. "What did you learn last night?" I said, I just wrote down, I guess as a fan of Jordan Peterson, I come to learn anything. Maybe it has a T here, it's a little typo. I didn't come to learn. I guess as a fan of Jordan Peterson, I didn't come to learn anything. I also wrote down, the only one with a notebook in the entire Fillmore, me, Jordan Peterson, be careful when meeting your heroes. I'll answer my questions myself. These are things I wrote down in quotes here. Jordan Peterson is not the one, mentions sovereignty, doesn't expose Admiralty law fraud, which I went down the rabbit hole of Admiralty law, maritime law, and why they were treating me the way that they were in court. And I wouldn't have been so crazy if the judges, which is all documented on my YouTube, didn't say things like there's too much water over the dam, or this is my wheelhouse, so we're gonna get your feet wet, and all these symbolic terminology they were using, okay? So I'm not the crazy one. Okay, now I'm making me crazy. All the diagnosis now to me is victimhood sounding. If he is this well-read, why is he not exposing Christ as the Son? Or Julius Caesar, possibly, but or named after Julius Caesar. from Constantine, who also burned his mother and his wife in oil for practicing the original Essene doctrines. I mean, I understand as a professor and in the spotlight, you will create enemies. But isn't it that contradicting to applying integrity? You have to risk offending people to say and expose truth. I really, and it's question mark, exposes truth. I don't like that. I just want a period there. I really wanted to ask if he applied characteristics of the zodiac to the 5 character traits that are a result of the IQ test. Absolutely, yes, there is a correlation, I think. And if everyone knew Christ was the chrism that correlates with the sun in our body, a physical result, an objective pattern manifested in accordance with the subjective along the ecliptic, because the sun as it travels the ecliptic zodiac, when the moon is in your sun sign, this biology takes place. Wouldn't it take care of sexual indulgence and crime? Christ is not to be wasted when planted in the solar plexus. It's meant to be raised. Maybe I should say when the moon is in your sun sign. I'm not making this stuff up. I just sound like a crazy person. When the moon is in your sun sign. My role, I think, is to expose the stars in the biblical text so that we can see our own signs in our life, that there is a connection to the other side, I suppose. Oh, you think? Going to get my passport today in hopes it will be here in time to visit Canada with the Detroit Dance Loft in May, hoping to learn more and find a good dance partner. And I really struggled at this time not smoking. And I don't mean cigarettes, but in Detroit and Michigan, it's legal to smoke cannabis. And actually saved my butt trimming cannabis and making money and being able to move up here. As in my book, you read in prior chapters. But so I didn't end up going over to Canada, and that's one of my big regrets of mine, especially with all the vape pens that we have now. But I quit every year smoking on my birthday to see what I'll fill in that time, and I'm so productive and efficient anyway. I'm kind of crazy, so I need to start cooking more, I guess. There is no plan B. Next chapter. I suppose this is the next chapter. We should probably call it the next chapter. I think I just start putting things in bold. There is no plan B. I'm going to call this, we called this chapter 21 or 23 or 24. I'm going to say 24. Because I got fired. There's no time and place for honest speech. Not always to your employer, but I can recognize why I impulsively reacted. Damn it, I just made things harder on myself. I hope the universe really has a plan. Crossing the return threshold. I keep telling everyone I hope I'm growing out of it in regards to smoking cannabis. I feel I've finally run out of thoughts, per se, that I don't want to just think anymore. I really have to take action. Now more than ever, since yelling at my work last week, I never wanted to lose my security or chase my dreams out of pure need. For the first time in my life, I have a couple thousand saved. The bills are paid, but what never seems to change is I never get paid for all the work I do. I can't replace the money I spend quick enough just to survive day to day. Never could, yet I don't waste a breath, especially at work. And this, I think I was working at Canado Tacos, and I did so much extra work at the end of the night, and I went off on group text in the app and said that I didn't need these extra hands at work and that I could do it myself since I was already doing all the work myself, or, along those lines. So that's not appropriate. And once again, they said you don't have to work here. So now my social media is fighting evil General Motors full-time. I feel like a liability now as a mad medicine woman. If I am to survive and test my philosophy, I will have to read the cards, and I mean tarot. The Rota, Torah, same thing as the symbology of the Bible. It's objective symbols, hopefully resonate with the subjective. There's a tarot reader online that keeps saying, oh, this is what happens to the cards. I say it and it happens and it comes out in the cards. Well, technically, that's how the science works. It's the involution and evolution of all things. What you put in your mind will manifest itself in these physical, objective symbols. So for me, it's about having no thought and then reading this objective stimuli and saying, oh, okay, let's see. And watch it play out later. And you say, oh, that's what was in the air. That's what was picked up on. So it's really a test. I say I read cards, not futures. So our interpretations are human still. There's room for error. But doesn't mean the cards lie. There will be signs. Cards don't lie. I'm blessed to have support at the moment. I moved to the populous city in the United States. One of the most. I moved to the populous city in the US, and I confide in my non-blood related cousin. Oh, very nice. Hopefully it's enough to courage to keep going. Hopefully it's enough courage to keep going. I moved to one of the most populous cities in the United States, and I confide in my non-blood related cousin. Long story, so here we go. Next chapter. Right now, I am at peace, executing my philosophy, checked off every possible box. How many times can I say that? Except I have to take a shower and practice tarot videos. Oh, great. And that's next too as well. Need to save up money for syntax lessons because I ended up paying money to learn how to expose and identify fraud all throughout my General Motors paperwork when we went to court. A plan will work. I am now a founder. Gosh, I was scared. I was really in doubt. The children's father and I's only hope, coming from double interest loans through our lawyers with our best interests in mind. I got a job running Expo at Founders Brewing Company in Detroit 3 days a week, and I love it. Quick, easy money, especially since I run circles around everyone. Customers hand me 20s all the time. Getting your nails done is like going to the dentist, sometimes middle school, but I make girlfriends at the salons now. There are snakes in the gardens and there are weeds. I thought for sure I was going to get fired. Dairy Queens. Gosh, I have to learn to keep my mouth shut, or at least I need to refine my tone. And so I go in on how I got in trouble for saying a word that's not very appropriate off the clock, which back when I grew up wasn't that big of a deal. And it's out of context. I said it was a bad word. And I have Tourette's when I'm angry. And that's why I don't serve anymore. I just run sandwiches. But anyway, so Founders Brewing Company, and it's all in this as we move forward. I was really proud of because I was studying everything about the founders, living off Jefferson Street in Detroit. I'm like, oh, I got the job at Founders Brewing Company. All the signs are there. And I ended up getting into it with like everyone at work. And not even meaning to, just making enemies for being myself, and different times. And later in the book, there's a Scorpio full moon and a new company that buys Founders Brewing Company, and on the full moon in Scorpio, and the logo has Scorpio and the name of the South Node that exalts in Scorpio and shuts down the company on that day. So I think it's interesting. It's later on, but instead of getting all into my drama at this point, we're going to go to the next chapter. It says, they took my voice and my following. I'm working in silence. Do you hear me? Is the name of this chapter. It's been a year since we signed this lease in October. The kid gets behind on his rent, short about $200 the last 3 months, but we're still afloat and working. Since we are going to trial after being offered $200,000 from Even Flow, an AmSafe company, in mediation, what a joke, worse an insult. And this was when the wrongful death of my children were still in the lawsuit before they dropped them on Halloween. And this last Halloween, 5 years later, 5 years later, I have new lawyers going after malpractice. They gave them until Halloween to submit their appeal. We're still going forward with trial for malpractice. So in this book, it explains how I lost my old lawyers, how we searched for 10 months for new lawyers, and yeah, do everything you can do. Do everything you can do. It'll work out. My lawyers told me to shut down my social media so that it wouldn't be used against me in front of a jury. Pure evil. I'm going crazy not being able to express myself when I watch others around me and online doing what I wish to do freely. Trial begins the 24th and pre-trial has already begun. During Libra season, and while Mercury's in retrograde from Libra, the scales of justice, into Virgo, the single woman, the mother, there's no telling how long this will take. 3 weeks for trial, 6 weeks for a decision, maybe. I don't have a choice but to do the work. I still have to get on the stand despite Gary crying and drinking vodka and storming off once again, fighting at lunch, our first and only day of mediation. I want to know the end of the story I'm in, the character I'm becoming, and what the universe has planned for me now. Apparently, according to the philosophers, we are testing ourselves, descended from the highest level to experience and observe, to learn who we are again and again in new expanded ways. Nothing is impossible. I will keep fighting to know the story's most fought victory. Then be the queen, my dancing journey and how it's given me strength in proving my philosophy started with Louise. I don't know why that's relevant. Started with Louise in Charlotte. Now training in Detroit with the best. I'm awesome. Okay. That's a reaction. So, I also have a chapter about getting upset with someone I called Dairy Queen at work, which I thought she was milking hours, but she actually has a lot of different physical ailments that I didn't know about, and I was just being a brat and jealous and broke. And so this next chapter says, I told Dairy Queen I was sorry. Wow, what a great mirror everyone must be, that I had to take a real good look at myself. And I did actually out loud say, then why would my spirit get so riled up about others' privilege to get paid for doing nothing? Socializing, cutting up, breaks, hanging out. Why was I so worked up about this then? Here I am writing a book on integrity. Assume formlessness from the 48 Laws of Power. Oh, yeah. I love reflecting on apologizing to that girl because she ended up being like really cool, and I wish I was her friend. She was that cool. So she's friends with everybody, like, really awesome person. So next, they just threw my children out of the case. You better know the fact. Fake courts of Admiralty Maritime Law are protecting corporations from the wrongful death of children. If my kids weren't in a car seat, they would be alive. Okay, Jordan Peterson, now what? Keep walking despite the malevolence of the world. Take responsibility for the wrong that has been done to you. What the hell does that look like? This must be the reason for this book. I'm going to kill someone. The bloodthirsty, perverted pirates. It's costed me my memories to be this strong. Pain is constant, though. It never ceases, never stops growing. You already have faith. You just have to put it in reverse gear. Napoleon Hill. Next chapter. Scorpio season. Interesting. It's Scorpio season now. How appropriate. Fittingly, it's Scorpio season, November 3rd, 2022. I want to go dark. Says, I want to go dark. I want to go dark. Again, took down all my astrology transits, ordered new books on the Vedas and the lunar houses to study up, fighting for Sagittarius season. Sagittarius represents higher learning a lot of times, long distance travel, going to study other cultures, spiritual learning. I wouldn't be able to do those things without working full-time as a single mom and not having to pay for some kind of childcare. I keep hearing all about these court cases that have paid out and to trust these lawyers. Of course, that's not where my strength comes from. Still beating my whole apartment building to the gym 4 days a week, every week this year. I'll be ridiculed for that. I'm not sure I care to convince a jury anything or why I've had to be strong with corporations getting away with the wrongful death of my children. Oh, yes, I do. This would be ugly. Something could happen. Something else could go wrong. I'm not manifesting it. I'm just not putting my eggs in these other baskets with false bottoms. Every time. I haven't talked to my children's father after his nasty words for being thrown out. That's great. Just blind. But truth will prevail. That's all we have left. So when he got thrown out, I wonder if I should expand on this. When he got being thrown out of mediation, he wasn't technically thrown out, and he was too drunk. He walked away and didn't come back in. So and he was thrown out because of the wrongful death. Oh, being thrown out of the case with the wrongful death of the children. With the wrongful death of the children. So we were only going after the results from my burns and what happened with my burns. And please go check out my videos on my burns as well. But truth will prevail. It's all we have left. Hard work and truth. Hard work for what it will make of you. I finished reading The Richest Man in Babylon, recommended by Jim Rohn. I read it while I was at work. Jim Rohn, famous motivational speaker, same birthday as me. The best part was the end. I normally don't read fiction, and there is much more to learn from the book, including 5 Cures to a Lean Purse. The end describes how being taught a lesson early on as a slave that hard work and what opportunities it brings was enough, and more than enough, and that what it makes of you makes hard work worthy of doing and bearing and taking on. Put me on the stand. I'm making $1,600 with disability. My rent is now $750 a month, up 18% since last year. If I were, and we split the rent, so each of us were paying that. If I were a full-time employee making $14 an hour, $6 more than in North Carolina, can make about $36,000 a year. The last 21 years, I've struggled with the thinking I was the poorest person I know. But I worked the hardest, made great connections, held great positions, though I was getting paid less than the less experienced non-graduates next to me. I made it up ladders of interviews for great positions, went to college full-time before that with children and a waitressing job at least 4 to 5 days a week, studied student retention at WCU, Western Carolina University, and presented it to the chancellor and the provost. I worked in the provost's office my beginning years in college and was the only walk-on to make the softball team in 2009, softball team in 2009. But these nasty attorneys and ports are going to bring up every bit of dirty laundry they can. I think if David and I get our security deposit back, I may have to spend $300 on our baby land deeds down the rabbit hole of admiralty law. Lawyers love the word pending. I'll make sure it's just that, at least. Prayers appreciated. Really asking for signs and guidance on this. Truth will prevail, even if it means fighting contempt. Strength over money. I'm not going, period. If they don't overturn this decision, if our appeal does not go through, I will tell them, make sure they know Kristina Frost says, fuck you, remember my children's name in hell. Lawyers lost, then we are not going to court for my burns, and they wasted their time and money over my dead children. So, overturning the wrongful death, being thrown out. I work for the good, or at least the as good as you can. I've always done what the highest good has asked me to do. Pretty damn close. Love, see people for the best in them. Take care of your children the best you can in every moment, despite my tempers out loud. from the financial existential circumstances, or men who've had no father figures, or men who've had no father figures that fall short. I remember writing a song where we are here for the fathers. My children taught me to care about school so I would do well for them. I knew every moment in school would have to matter because I didn't have much time left. Worked full-time waitressing, producing commercials and getting paid less than everyone else in the radio station. I'm going to say at the radio station office. It says office. At the radio station with my children. When I was in college with my children, I studied for the chancellor and was a provost scholar. I had great interviews, tiers of interviews, top candidate, and then I was a mom. Now I've lost some part-time jobs for being a hothead, but not being a mom. I went home and left when I needed to. I tried to get to Gary and my other friends that 4th of July, whom we are no longer speaking, but they were there in the hospital. I miss Mariana. If you ever read this, you were the greatest friend. I wish I was more grown up to be a better friend to her. She just always took care of me and my babies. She moved back to Spain. But visited but came right away to the hospital. We raised our children together in college. We raised our children together. You say after college, at college, at WCU. Okay. Some old friends couldn't talk after the accident until one day we exploded. Some old friends couldn't talk after the accident until one day we exploded. Doesn't make sense. Some did. Some of my friends couldn't talk after the accident, and that's true. So this integrity life bullshit isn't worth it. If I don't get my kids again, which I was convinced I could have my children again and see them in a new family, which not, who knows. And then I kept working when it hurt my legs. I also learned a doctor was taking medication out under my name. That's true. We later found out, I was asked, they said, haven't you been taking pain medication for a year after I was released from the hospital in 2018? And I said, no, I think I was on it a month or two on pain medication. And they said I was on it for a year and that a doctor was taking pain medication out under my name. Crazy. I worked for the Carolina Panthers, got my Zumba license, got a job at Arthur Murray that dissolved my year contract from COVID. Oh yeah, in Charlotte, in Arthur Murray in Charlotte. So this is before I got my job at Arthur Murray here from my boyfriend working on the floors there. And he told him I was dancing in Detroit. So I got my job back after COVID and everything, unannounced to me, came out of the blue. Denied disability for 3 years, ran away to trim cannabis in Michigan. Cannabis, it says to trim cannabis in Michigan. Picked up a roommate, oops, after leaving old no good temporaries. Let's say old friends. Drove pizzas, got my roommate a job making pizzas, lost our jobs, lost us our jobs for speaking up for myself. Oops, life's not real anymore. Back up to Michigan to make money and set up my roommate. Asked to be his roommate after protesting like a crazy woman dressed up in Detroit on 4th of July. Lost my trim job and another part-time job for stomping around, entitled badass, life's not real, but I'm the strongest motherfucker in this biatch. Almost lost my new job, but apologized and had to grow up again. I've always done what was asked to keep surviving. And yes, while also blasting out resumes and applications through Indeed, I've paid my own way like my family before me. And I want to know, what is the point of the good choice, or as the good as you can choice? Boom, baby. Because sometimes you have to stick up for yourself, right? Come on. I mean, when people are people, I'm a people too. So, Sky Fever, Even Flowers Die. A band from Ireland that I met working at the Carolina Panthers after my accident, because I went straight to work after my accident. And I waitressed on my skin graft legs, which was very hard. And then I stood up and scanned people into the press box at the Carolina Panthers. And I met this band that wrote Keep Pounding for the Carolina Panthers. They wrote a song for me called Even Flowers Die. So you'll have to check that out by Sky Fever, Even Flowers Die. But Losing Daylight here. I'm going to start at the next chapter, but this is where I get in trouble and I say that thing off the clock. Maybe we'll start at another chapter. I feel like there's a lot of chapters in between here, but I'm going to call this start chapter 25. Did we say 24, 23, or 20? I don't even know. So this is why you got to go back and look at it before you send it off to editors or anything like that. So I'm going to call this one chapter 24. I work for the good, or at least the good as you can. We'll have to go back and check our numbers later. So anyway, I appreciate you all witnessing my testimony. If you build it, they will come. This is my philosophy, as of many, and we're going to see if it's true. So we're going to keep editing and completing the book, going through the story, and the story will be told one day. And if you get to read this book, then you know I wasn't crazy. So 4 years later in the gym. Okay. We're done. We're done here. We're going to have dinner now. Thank you so much. Kristina Frost, First General Motors. Everything I do is for my babies, Shauna and Tristan. Check out my story, The Rapture Begins in Detroit. Thank you so much.